Hello, everyone. As always on the... That was a terrible intro. Let me start again. Ahem. Hello. I'm going to scrap the hello and just say... No, I can't do that. So,
Bonjour.
bonjour. It's French now. We're your French people. Oh my gosh, the thing derailed. Bonjour, hello, whatever country origin of hello you deal with, or whatever your greetings are. Mochnadim? I don't know. It's probably something to someone, but anyways. No, if I just said an insult, not my fault. But
Hmm.
anyways, welcome to Middle. I really gotta look into that name change. I'm getting a lot of random thoughts right now. Okay, so roll with it. Oh my goodness. Anyways, yes, welcome to the Middle. I'm Nick. This is always in the other side of the comms is Justin providing gameplay on something I don't know. Who knows?
Game.
I'll look in the app. Yeah, game. I'll look at the I'll look at the recording afterwards. But anyways, to figure out what the heck's even being put on the show. I mean, hell, he could be watching uncensored adult content, and I would
Oh.
never know.
I mean, technically I can when you have two screens.
I mean, yeah, you not.
I'm just saying, you don't know what's going on screen number two, besides
Yeah,
all the
no,
technical
no.
work of knowing if the stream is up, having Discord and the recording software as well as a soundboard. But
The editor.
you don't you don't know. I could
No,
have
no,
like
I really.
six more tabs other than that.
Yeah, all of them probably uncensored stuff. I don't know what you do in your spare time, nor do I really want to. But anyways,
Yes.
Master Chief uncensored content. I don't know.
Yes.
Let the audience draw the connections there. I don't know. But anyways, enough lollygagging. Welcome to the show again. Today we'll be covering an interesting topic that has caused quite a stir in the games industry. Price hikes of the PlayStation 5. Now, you may have heard of this, you might not. If you haven't, I'm a little surprised. This has been blowing up the news lately. But a few days back, like sometime last week, I think around Thursday or so, PlayStation announced that it was going to jack up the price of the PlayStation 5 worldwide, with one key exception. Now, in their PlayStation blog, they cite that global economic changes have made it more difficult for them to produce the units, as well as global inflation rates and currency trends. Basically, currency exchange rates have been a bit problematic. We'll break all that down a bit later, but just roll with it for now. But yeah, after citing global hardships, which has been a thing in the industry for, a little bit now, as well as the chip shortage that has kind of started to taper off, I've been told, but again, we'll get more into that later. They're saying they're rising the prices. Now, the breakdown goes like this, and the link to the PlayStation blog that mentioned all this is in the description below, as is all the articles we'll be citing today. So, if you don't get it, don't worry, it's all there so you can read it personally. In Europe, they're raising the price for the digital edition to 449 euros and 549 euros for the actual physical edition, and they're raising it in the UK to 479 euros, and in the PS5 digital edition to 389 euros. In Japan, interestingly enough, they put the included tax. I'm not sure why they put that specifically in there. Maybe in most Japanese purchases, the tax is not included when you're writing stuff down. I'm not sure, but regardless, they're raising the price for the physical edition there to 600 to 6,000 yen, over 6,000 yen, and so on and so on and so on. Again, all the prices are breaking down below, but mostly we're seeing $20 to $50 price increases in some places, and in the case of the yen, I think it's like 600 yen. I'll have to look at the numbers, but regardless, it is not a small price hike. Most of these are at least 20.
Yeah. It's a pretty interesting increase to note.
Mm-hmm. Now, again, I did mention one key exception. In their blog, before they mention the prices, they say, and I quote, "There will be no price increase in the United States," unquote. Interesting. Now, again, they don't give a particular reason as to why. They just say a bunch of problems in the world, we're raising the prices, da 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 da, outside the US. Now, again, there's a whole discussion we can have and will have about why not only are they raising the prices, but also why the US has been excluded, but we'll get to that.
Well, right off the bat, right away, you can go and note that, okay, well, if there's a chip shortage, that's a question already, because chips aren't particularly made in the US. They're made in Asia. So,
Yeah,
question.
but the chip shortage is one reason. Like I said, we'll
Yeah,
break down the reasons in a minute.
yeah.
Oh, excuse me while I stretch on this end.
Mm.
I just woke up, ladies and gentlemen. Full disclosure, this is an unscripted show, so I am not afraid to go off camera or off script a little bit because there is no script. It's the
What
nice
script
part
are you
about this.
talking about? There is no script.
Exactly.
Forward.
So, so if this sounds a bit chaotic, that's the reason. We always do it with this show. If you haven't know, if you do not know, that's the kind of. I like to think that is the draw of this show that we do not have a script.
Yes.
But back to the topic at hand. Let's start breaking down some of those exact points. Actually, no, before we do that, let's talk about the other companies. Because your first response after hearing this is probably okay, global trends are making it difficult for companies to put out their systems. Okay, what do Xbox and Nintendo have to say about this? Well, both of them were asked. And what are their answers? As to will they jack up their price? Both of them collectively, no. They will not raise up their price. In the case of Nintendo, interestingly enough, I even heard rumors that they were actually asked, funnily enough, only shortly before PlayStation announced their price hike officially about if there will be a price hike increase because there are actual, difficulties in the product place right now, such as, again, currency exchange rates being a bit, chaotic, as well as the fact that, chip shortages and global environmental economics, i.e., there's a virus going around, so da 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 da, and global inflation rates. But again, that's all money talk, which some of you may or may not be fluent in. So I won't go too deep into that for the time being. But anyways, starting with Xbox, they actually responded to PlayStation's hike, and on something from Windows Central, there's actually a interview with a representative from Xbox or Microsoft. Would this be proper to say Microsoft or Xbox? Hold on, let me say exactly. No, Microsoft spokesperson. Yes, it is Microsoft we're talking to here. And they say a Microsoft spokesperson confirmed that there are no plans to raise the price of Xbox Series X or Series X or S, my bad. Basically, they say that at the baseline, various currencies, including USD, GRB, the euro, da 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 da, they're currently evaluating the. He says, or they say, we are currently evaluating our business to offer our fans greatest gaming options. Our Xbox Series S suggested its retail price remains $299, and the Xbox Series X remains $499. Now, if you if you read a little bit between the lines with this spokesperson, you can tell they're clearly leaving the door open by saying they have no, plans at all to change. They're just saying at the moment, no. Now, again, this is Microsoft we're talking about here, who is valued as a $2 trillion company. They are a massive corporation in the tech industry, so they are more than able to kind of ride out this wave of turmoil that's kind of racked the production industry, shall we say. So they don't really have an excuse when it comes to raising prices, so I can kind of see why they're not doing that. Plus, there's a lot of talk in the kind of industry about this whole price hike that Microsoft might be planning to also raise the kind of ride the wave of bad PR PlayStation has made for themselves with this price hike, so they're keeping it the same. Again, they might have thought about it, but now they're definitely not because, like I said, they can kind of eat it because they're just
See
that
how
big.
it works out for Sony and all that.
Yeah, plus they're not really. But also the fact that, like I said, considering how massive they are, they don't really need to raise their prices. They can afford to eat it. Plus, you have to remember there's one key thing about Xbox people have to consider. Hardware is not the main source of their interest in this generation. They're not interested in pushing hardware as much anymore. They're interested in pushing Game Pass, which is a digital service. So they're already not too interested in hardware as is. So it's best to keep things as is because they want to get Xboxes in people's houses to push them towards Game Pass, which is a whole other topic for another day. But like I said, there's a whole different priority Xbox is working off of here, so hardware interests are not too much of a problem for them. They don't have to worry too much about getting their money back for hardware because they're already taking a gamble as is. But anyways, that's Xbox for you. They've again said they have not plans at the moment. And again, the article even goes on to say, well, this isn't a hard guarantee that we'll never see a price hike. It certainly is an encouraging sign that Microsoft has no intention to do so in the short term. And again, they previously mentioned disrupted supply chain and inflation rates as a result of the pandemic, which has caused all economies to go all over the place. They even go on to say the UK is expected to hit an unprecedented 18% inflation rate milestone. Usually I think milestones are for good things, not bad things, but I guess this article disagrees with me, so whatever.
Well, inflation to the British is always an interesting topic for them.
Yeah. Well, they mentioned the currencies in the Eurozone are also impacted due to disruptions in the energy sector due to the war between Russia and Ukraine, but again, whole other topic.
Yeah.
Like I said, the world right now is very difficult for the dollar. But now that that's said and done, let's move over to Nintendo. And what does Nintendo say? Well, in short, no plans to increase Switch price. And like I said, they were actually interviewed a little bit before the whole business with Sony broke, and they also confirmed that. The reason is because Nintendo is the smallest of the three big companies by a long shot. Sony is medium in size, Xbox is titanic in size, but Nintendo, despite being ironically the oldest in the space, going all the way back to before the arcade days, are the smallest company. So, I guess age doesn't really pay off in some ways. Regardless, this particular article mentions the after effects of Sony, though, saying that they have responded that Nintendo has joined Microsoft in responding to this week's shocking PlayStation 5 price hike and said it has no plans to similarly bump up the Nintendo Switch cost. In a statement issued to Eurogamer this morning, Nintendo Switch confirmed it had no plans to increase trade price of its hardware. They mentioned that the response goes further than that of Microsoft's, which noted Sony's dramatic decision, again, their words, not mine, again, kind of them poking at Sony, hoping to get good PR out of this, not surprising. And says that they were keen to offer our fans great gaming options, which again is them just trying to poke at PlayStation to kind of give themselves good PR. Nintendo had a full statement from the company president given during its June AGM conference, which again is prior to all of this breaking because they're the smallest company and, you get the point. Anyways, it reiterates that Nintendo prices are staying put for now. In the full statement, it is as follows. As our president, Mr. Furukawa, I believe, stated at our 82nd annual grand meeting of shareholders in June, wow, what an opening. While we cannot comment on pricing strategies, we certainly do not have any plans to change the price of our hardware due to inflation or increased product procurement cost in each country. We will determine our future pricing strategies through careful and continued deliberations. While the final price to customers is always determined by retailers, as Mr. Furukawa stated, Nintendo has no plans to increase the trade price of its hardware. Yesterday, Sony stated stunned the games industry by announcing an unprecedented price increase to it for its PlayStation 5 base model and discless version, which now both cost €30 more in the UK and €50 €30 more in the UK and €50 more in Europe. Elsewhere around the world, I'm just reading the whole thing for you. But anyways, you get the point.
Yeah.
I believe it also mentioned in that statement, though I haven't gotten it myself, so I'll have to figure that one out. But basically, he also cited that the yen, being weak as it is, might also be a benefit for Nintendo due to the fact that, as he says, unfortunately, it does not have a full breakdown of the conference and the general statement he gave to the shareholders. But basically, when the shareholders asked about price increases, he said that the weak yen in Japan is actually kind of a benefit to Nintendo because they do most of their business by his admission overseas. So most of the money they make is going to be converted into more than what they're basing it off of in the yen. So they're kind of making more than they're putting out, so to speak. And they already admit that the OLA, he admits that the OLA, the OLM, OLA, OLM, I can't remember what the new model is called, is already their weakest model as is anyway, so they're kind of taking a gamble as is, but they're willing to ride it out. But basically, yeah, all in all, Nintendo is committed, at the moment at least, to keeping things as they are, and they're trying to find ways to work around things. So they're already in the process of trying to keep prices down. Plus, I believe he also said in that interview, and again, unfortunately, I do not have the full breakdown here specifically, but he also said that it would not do Nintendo any good to essentially price out consumers, which is essentially, if you don't know, business talk is essentially the equivalent of saying, if we make the price too high, who's gonna buy?
Nobody buy Nintendo. Mario
Honestly.
unhappy. Mario getting his bat.
Mario unhappy.
Mario's getting his bat.
Mario's turned violent.
Yes.
Mario's getting his
Mario
back.
is disappointed.
Well then, that turned violent. But apparently Mario turns violent when he's unhappy. That explains all the poor Goombas that have to have their heads stomped.
Mario has to pay off all the money for going out with Princess Peach.
Hey, there's theories that there isn't even a really hard relationship there, but
Yeah, but still. He's gotta pay every once in a while.
Pay the plumber tax. Union's gonna. Never mind. Anyways.
Them pesky unions. They're
pesky
everywhere.
Pesky plumber unions, they're squeezing me. I'm going to stop right there before I get demonetized. But anyways, you get the point. So PlayStation, I keep saying PlayStation, Nintendo, who is a much smaller corporation, is at least at the moment dedicated to keeping their prices low. And like I said in the full statement, they said that they do not want to price out consumers, plus the fact that they already are currently finding ways around things. So, there is plans and steps they're taking. Unfortunately, I do not have the full piece for you in that, but you get the gist just by this article that I provided. Sadly, like I said, I don't have the full piece. I thought it had the full piece when I cited this, but it did not, but whatever. But anyways, the article, you get the point.
Yes.
So, where does this leave us with PlayStation? Well, circling all the way back around to PlayStation, they cite global issues and stuff like that. And yes, they're not Microsoft by any means. They're not a massive multi-billion dollar. Well, they are a multi-billion dollar, but they're not a company as large as Microsoft by any means. So there is, at one hand, some precedent as to why they are trying to not write out things. But also, it's odd when Nintendo, who is a much smaller competitor, albeit a much older one, is saying, yeah, we're not raising our prices either. So it certainly doesn't look good for PlayStation, who's a much bigger company and would have more ability to ride out these difficulties than Nintendo, and yet they're the ones raising their price, not Nintendo. Plus, there's also one other factor of this whole bit we haven't talked about yet, and that is the caveat to their price hike. And that is the United States. Now, there's some reasoning for this, and it's quite simply this. In recent years, PlayStation has made a lot of efforts to refocus their interests to the US instead of Japan. Now, for those who don't remember the early kind of years of the PS5 and stuff like that, there was a bit of concern and controversy that PlayStation is trying to refocus away from Japan, where they originally were based, and more into the United States and pushing more of their authority into the US versus having it more focused in Japan. Now, this caused a bit of a stir in Japan as well. What country is going to like one of their biggest top brands saying, yeah, we're going to go to somewhere else and base it out of there?
Unhappy audience.mp4.
Pretty much. This could be another reflection of that refocusing of interest. Because again, while they are raising prices in Japan, they are not raising prices in the US market. Now, there might be other reasons to this, and I'll toss a few of them out here, but again, none of these are confirmed. These are just my own spinfoily hat theories. But essentially, it could also be that the fact that since the US dollar is the world standard when it comes to currencies, if they refocus most of their business in the US, it kind of saves them a trouble on currency conversions, which again is another factor of world business. You kind of have to buy currencies to sell in other currencies. It's just kind of the way of things. But since the US dollar is valued so highly, if they work in that, they might be saving themselves quite a bit of trouble. Plus, there's also the factor to consider that, again, much like Nintendo, Sony might be doing a lot of their business in the US. I don't have any source for that, mind you. I'm just putting that out there as a spinfoil hat theory. These are my own thoughts on the matter. But it is worth considering the possibility. If Sony is doing most of its business in the US and focuses most of their business in the US, then yeah, if they screw over the other markets, do whatever. They're not doing most of their business there anyway, so it's not like they're losing much in the long run. And the few people who do buy will kind of offset their books anyway. So, all in all, it's kind of a case of keep your core market happy. But again, as I reiterate, I have no source for either of those claims. I'm just spin foiling that off the top of my head, so don't take those words as godsend. But anyways, that's the gist of the stance right now.
Yeah.
Global problems has forced Sony, or at least supposedly forced Sony to increase prices, which again is a little rich coming from them versus someone like Nintendo, who's a much smaller competitor. But what are you gonna do, right?
Yeah, it's not
What do
really.
you think, Justin?
It's interesting to say the least, that's for sure. There's a lot of choices that are being made that are like, oh, yes, It kind of just feels no matter what, like Sony's doing this in order to make money.
Well,
Like,
that's kind of the obvious
well,
point.
yeah, but no, like the whole purpose of it was to just solely make money. It's like, instead of going and changing the price in moderation to kind of make a little more money, but in order to also kind of compensate for the fact that yeah, there is going to be higher prices for some of the parts that they're going to need, so they're just going to go and up the overall price just enough to hopefully be able to offset some of the losses they would get from that.
Possibly. Now, again, interestingly enough, I did actually hear in the comments of one of the videos I was looking over this that apparently the chip shortage, and again, this is more just what I hear in the comments section, so don't take this as godsend either, but I hear the chip shortage might be ending soon. Ending soon, forgive me. So that would be one less reason for this. Also interesting to point out, again, I don't have a source for this, but it's not exactly hard to find this information. So, take this for what you will. But apparently this comes off the heels of, I believe it was Meta, raising the price of their VR headset after citing similar issues. And for those who don't know, Meta headsets, I was about to say consoles, Meta headsets aren't cheap already. So, interesting that after Meta did it, shortly then after PlayStation did something similar. But again, take that for what you will. I don't have a source for that one either, but it's not hard to find that information at the moment. So,
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting to watch. This is another one of those cases where companies gonna do something with their console, and we're gonna have to see how it works out, whether or not people pay with their wallet or not.
At the end of the day, we'll see. people are thinking that if there's enough backlash to Sony about all of this, they'll might reconsider their price hike because it might do them more damage than good.
Yeah.
After all, the PlayStation is, last I checked, still hard to get as is, and this is only going to make things more complicated. But hey, look at it on the plus side. It's going to mess with the scalpers a bit more, so yay, I guess. Take the good with the bad, I guess, huh?
Just a little.
But yeah, hopefully PlayStation has enough bad PR to reconsider their stance on this. It's already been almost a week since they have announced this, as of this recording at least, because I believe they announced this sometime last Thursday or around therein, and they still have not said anything on changing their opinions, so they might not. They might be dedicated to this for the long haul. Like I said, they might have been expecting this kind of bad PR, because as previously mentioned in one of my spinfoil hat theories, they might be more focused on the US market anyway, which is why they interestingly excluded that market from the price hike increase. After all, if you keep your core customer base happy, who cares if you screw over the other ones, right? That's not where you're making their most money anyway. So,
Well,
who knows? But again, PlayStation is a pretty worldwide brand, so while yeah, they don't make a lot of business over in other countries other than the US by far, sure, you still have to remember that difference could still be several $1 million differences. So
yeah, it's still a substantial amount for them.
yeah, it's still a substantial amount for them overall, and I imagine if there's enough backlash across the board, they might reconsider, but like I said, it's been almost a week to the day since they've announced this, and still nothing. But I imagine they're still arguing about this in their boardrooms. So, if nothing else, the shareholders may or may not be happy about this, but we'll see. But yeah, that's the news for this week. Thought I'd get that one out there. Sorry this took a little bit longer than 12 to get out. I'm having a little mic trouble, and that's why my audio might be a little different than usual. Sorting that out, my headphone may have went kaput on me, so I'm using a temporary one for the moment. And my headphone jack may also have gone kaput, but I'm still in the process of testing to figure that part out. So whatever. Hopefully it'll get resorted by next week, but if not, we'll see. But yeah, that's the news this week. Any final thoughts to add there, Justin?
Just as it is. I mean, really, it just seems like Sony doesn't want people to be getting the PS5. That's for sure.
Well, they do. It's just not at the OG price.
You know, there's no such thing as OG price. Only company price.
only suggested retail price, which
So,
you take business.
A base price is only a suggestion.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. And you learn this if you're in business like I currently am. The word suggested in there is a company saving grace, because legally speaking, a company cannot I think in any country actually, say this is the hard price you have to sell it to customers at. If you go to a person like Walmart and you sell them like 100 consoles and you say you have to sell it at this price exactly, you cannot legally do that, which is why the word suggested is in there. They're suggesting you sell at this price. You don't have to.
It'd be very beneficial if you did.
It'd be very beneficial if you did, but you don't have to. And that little caveat is how companies can get away with it. But again, it's a little bit of a legal gray area, because
they're not implying anything, but they're also kind of implying something.
well, again, it's not like they can have any backlash if they don't sell it at that price, which again is why the suggested word is there. But let's be frank. Most companies obviously go with the suggested price, especially if it's something of a high market item, if a high ticket item, so to speak. Like the aforementioned consoles, which are several $100s by themselves. And Sony is intent on making it 1,000 if we flipping let them, but that's beside the point. I mean, honestly, some of these prices go into the almost 600 range. I think actually in the 600 range. Hold up. Yeah, no, in Canada. In fact, where I'm based.
Yes. Where we are based.
where we are based. This show is based. We are, well, I'm half. Never mind. The point is,
Yes.
the price has gone up and now is sitting at $649 for the disc version. So I feel like the Mexicans in a way have, well, no, the Australians probably have it worse with it, 799, which is ludicrous.
You're
Including tax
stealing
that
my
at least is
money.
well, at least including tax that is going to go almost to 1,000, if not plus 1,000. So, yeesh. It's kind of funny after all the talk in this generation when it first came out of them trying to keep the price under 1,000. Now Sony turns around and does this. Is I don't know.
$1 million for our console, please.
$1 million, come, fork it over. But I mean both the Mexicans and the Japanese have worse, but again, that depends on their inflation rates. Where the Japanese have to pay now 60,000 yen for the console, over 60,000 yen for the disc version at least, and the Mexicans, I'm not sure what their dollar is called or whatever the version of their dollar is. I'm not sure.
I think
But
it's very close to the U.S. dollar. I think at the very least it's based on it and everything. So
I hope not, because they have to charge almost almost 15,000. So if it's almost the U.S. dollar, something's off here. So.
well, yeah, there's been a lot of inflation lately, so you never know.
Yeah, apparently in some places more than others. But
Yeah.
anyways, that's the news. Like I said, I'll leave it there. Plus, one, because there's not much else to say here really, and two, I gotta go test my computer. I've got to do a battery of tests to make sure that my computer is not kaput. I really hope it's just the headset. I really, really do. Because as pricey as that headset was, it is much easier to place a headset and then take your computer in to have itself dissected to make sure a headphone jack isn't, screwed up. But anyways.
Yeah, why not be like me and have something that's over 5 years old and still functioning?
Yeah, well.
Not everyone's privileged with such amazing good technology.
Yeah, well, I guess your luck in that regard is much better than mine, which, in fairness, with my history, kind of holds up. The weird part is I have not the slightest idea why it went kaput. But again, we're getting off topic here.
Yes.
I'll let you, ladies and gentlemen, go because this is a whole other topic for a whole other video. So anyways, as always, good night.